Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a tag that I've seen people doing for a while and I keep seeing it, so I decided I would finally do it. This is if I could only keep one palette from each brand. Obviously each brand that I own, and I had to own obviously more than one palette. So it was anything that I had two or more from a particular brand. So there's not every single brand that I own, because a lot of brands I only have one palette from. So I had to have at least two. So we're going to get into that. So if you want to know what I picked, some of them are going to surprise you probably. Jeffree Star is going to be included, but it's not going to be the palette that you think it is. So if you want to see which one I chose, then just keep on watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure your notification bell is turned on. And yeah, if you want to see what I picked, we're going to get into it right now. This was hard. And I do have two ABH. I did the normal like rectangle ones and then the Norvina collection because I feel like it's a separate brand within the brand. So there's technically two ABH palettes, one of the big ones and then one of the normal rectangle ones. But other than that, it's one from each brand. There's a huge pile that you can't see that is like right here. So I'm just gonna go down. So ABH is on top, so we'll do those first. So the rectangular one, this one is probably going to surprise you, and actually surprised me. I had to go through and like open them all up and look at them. I think I own 6 ABH rectangle palettes. The one I ended up deciding to keep was the Carly Bible one. And this is probably people's like least favorite. I don't know, it's just a really pretty, easy, everyday color scheme. Not super dark like this is like an everyday like work palette, I think, but it is pretty and I like the color scheme. Now I do own the Alexandra.a.antis palette. I've only used it once. I have Prism, which that was my second choice, was going to be, I was torn between this and the Prism palette. I still have Modern Renaissance, I have Norvina, I have Riviera. I think that's it. I like the color scheme in this, and I think that this would be a good one to highlight. These are everyday colors for me, and I actually like the color story in this a little bit better than Alexandra.a.antis, and just because these are a little bit lighter. And that's nothing against that palette, because obviously I bought it, I own it, but for me, like, this is more like everyday. So that's personal preference with that. That was a long time. I'll try not to stay on each palette that long. And then for the volume palettes, I have 3. I have 1, 3, and 4. So I went with 3 just because I haven't used 1 yet, and 1 is honestly like purples and like the mustard shades, and I don't wear purples a ton. This one's got all like the neon colors and the browns in it, so this is the one that Mike bought me, and that may be swaying my decision a little bit. I like volume 4. So it was going to be between 4 and this one, and because I have a lot of like the light pinky colors in this one, I think that's why I ended up picking this. So I'm sure I'm going to get all kinds of hate if people outside the like subscriber family see this for picking this one. I can already see it, but I don't use these rectangle palettes often, so the ones that I have, I don't use them a ton. I had a hard time picking. For Juvia's Place, I went with the Masquerade Mini. This one's a favorite. I've had this for a long time. This one probably needs to be repurchased in the next year because it's getting old. But you've got neutrals, the warm neutrals, you've got pops of color. So it's a good, if I was to get rid of all the other ones, this would be a good one. The Juvia's Place ones are hard because I use quite a few of them for like one shade in the fall when I do like candy corn and like rustic like fall leaf look. So that one was hard to pick one. Kaleidos, I have like 6 palettes, so I went with one of their 6-pan. This is the one that I've used the most. So this is the Astro Pink. It looks like this. So I was tempted to keep the green one, but this is honestly the one that I've used the most, so I went with that one. Lime Crime. I have a bunch of Lime Crime palettes. I have like the Polly Pocket ones. I have a bunch of their smaller like Original Venus palettes. I ended up going with the Venus XL. I was actually torn between the Immortalis palette and this one. I think because of the pinky tones in here, I ended up going with this one instead of the Immortalis, just because obviously it's bigger, there's more shades in here, and I figured I would get more use out of that than keeping one of the smaller ones. Ace Beauté, I have 3. I went with the Vintage Dawn just because it's got the rustic kind of grungy color story. I do have a Lime Crime palette with a similar color story. It's just smaller. Those are 6 shades, whereas this is 8, 9, 10, 12. So figured that would be a good one. Makeup Revolution, I went with the Soph X Extra Spice. I've, again, used this one the most. I have the original Soph palette. I think I've gotten rid of my other Makeup Revolution palettes, but I like this one. Again, this is a fall palette for me, but it's pretty. It's a good drugstore palette if you've never... This one I think is still available. The original Soph palette was discontinued, but you can still get it on Poshmark, which is where I got mine. For ColourPop, I went with the Zodiac with Kathleen Lights. I love this gold shade, and there's a mustard, like camel-y color, some oranges, a couple like purple and burgundy. The shimmers are really nice. I do wish the Libra and the Cancer were a little bit different. They're very similar in tone. I don't know why. Those look almost identical, so that's my only gripe. Like, I don't know. I would have to go back and watch her video. I'm sure when this palette first came out, they look different, but over time, like, that's my only complaint, because those 2 shimmers with age look identical now. I'm sure when this palette first came out, there were slightly tone differences, but you will notice, like, when palettes get older, the colors do change a little bit. So that's kind of annoying now that I noticed that, but that would be the ColourPop palette that I would pick. Lorac, I went with the Pro 4. This is another like easy everyday, like you're not going to get a ton of very like different looks. I do like there's a black in here, and it's just, it reminds me of the Naked Cherry, and I didn't pick that one from Urban Decay, so I think this is probably the next best thing to the Naked Cherry. Dominique Cosmetics, I went with the Celestial Storm instead of Berries and Cream just because of the colors. Like, these 2 shimmers are gorgeous. Like, this purple's got like a bluey shift to it. This blue's got like a gray shift. And there's some fun colors in here, so I went with that one. We'll finish with that pile. Lunar Beauty. And I honestly haven't tried any of my Lunar Beauty palettes. I have this one, Strawberry Dream, and Life's a Drag, but I went with this one just because this is one of the most unique color stories I have, period, as far as one palette goes. So I think if I was gonna keep one, it would be this one. Like, I need to try it. It's been sitting on top over here, so it'll get used soon, hopefully. KVD, I have this in the Lolita palette. I went with this one just because it's larger. I like the Lolita palette, but that one's all matte, and I'm not an all matte kind of a girl, so this one just has lots of color options, a lot of like matte and shimmer. There's these like 2 transformative topper shades up here. You got a black, you got some staple colors, got some pops of color, so I went with the bigger one just because of the color range. Dose of Colors, again, I have 2, so I went with the Friendcation palette and the smaller 6-pan one I haven't really used yet. I have used this one. It's fine. I don't lose my mind over it like some people I've seen do. Like I said, it's fine. Like, the shimmers are nice. They're not bad shimmers. They're not necessarily, I'd like them to be a little more on the metallic side, but I think that's why I'm not like a lot of people are. Let me do my 3 smaller ones. So from Laura Lee Los Angeles, I have 3 palettes. I went with Sleigh Bell. She's the one I've used the most. I have Nudie Patootie and the Party Animal, which is the neon like 6-pan. I like this one a lot. I use it. I got it like 2 Christmases ago, so it's a good winter time palette for me, and it's pretty, and the mattes are pigmented, the shimmers are really nice. It's just a nice little 6-pan palette. Huda Beauty, I do have a full size and a bunch of the 6-pan. The emerald is one of my favorites. The smoky palette is the one I've used the most, but the green one is one of my favorite ones. It's just got some really pretty shades in it. So since I didn't keep the green ColourPop, I went with the green Huda Beauty. And then from the balm, I ended up keeping my little 3-pan because I can't live without this like brow bone highlight shade. I used it today. It's the color that's under my brow bone, so I would be lost without that. Makeup Geek, I have my Z palette with my singles, and then I have Champagne Rose and the peach one. These are the ones she released right before her relaunch. She's a little messy, but I kept the pinky one. It's pretty. These are good little palettes. I think you can pop these out fairly easy if I wanted to put them in a Z palette, but I kept that one. Alter Ego, I have 3 palettes. I went with the Goddess palette just because of the color scheme. I think out of the 3, this is the one I would probably get the most use out of. I like these like camely, almost mustard tones in here, and the bluey greens are really pretty. I don't know, it's just a pretty color story. This is a dupe for the Natasha Denona, I think gold palette is what it's a dupe for. Lunatic Cosmetics, I went with the Heart, Take My Heart palette. This is a little 5-pan. They're all little like 5-pan palettes. The other ones I have are coffin shaped, but this is the one that I've been gravitating to more. Again, it's nothing like spectacular, but they're pretty shadows. Too Faced was another hard one with ABH, and I really looked. I have a lot of Too Faced palettes, but one that I've used a lot, and I get a lot of compliments when I do use this one, is the Gingerbread Spice. So this has made it into a few of these like palette videos for me. So this is the one I ended up. I was torn between their anniversary palette and this one, and I ended up, just because I've used this one more than that one, so I ended up going with that. Sugar Pill, I have a few palettes from them. I recently got the duo with the pill. These ones, I got both of these, and then I have the little pastel version, but I really like, this is one I'll again probably use more in the fall, but I really like the tones of this one, so this is the one that I ended up keeping. These are gonna be kind of annoying to store. I've already decided I'm gonna be annoyed with those. Let's do Morphe. For Morphe, I did the 35M, the Boss Mood palette. My friend Lauren bought me this one. This one's really good. This is a cheaper one. It's like 21 or 23. It's one of their more inexpensive ones as far as the sizing, but it's good. I've used most of the shades in here. You've got greens and oranges and berries and some purple, very grungy like fall palette, but the quality of this one's good. Can't say that for every Morphe palette, but this one is a good palette. For Urban Decay, I ended up going with my Game of Thrones palette just because I like the color story and it's a little bit bigger of a palette. I have the Electric palette. I have a couple of older like Moon Dust and Smoked palette, and then I have Naked Heat, Naked Cherry. Urban Decay was hard, but I like these like earthy tones in here. There's some pops of color. I am a Game of Thrones fan, so I do like, even though this is annoyingly large, I do like that it has the Iron Throne, and I liked this palette. This was one people liked it or they didn't, but I did like this palette. So just the color selection in here, I figured this would be the one that I would get the most use out of if I got rid of my others. Glam Lights, I ended up keeping the Miracle palette. Just I was between this and the Pizza palette. This one just is a little bit easier to store. The color story is similar, but that was the only reasoning behind that. BH Cosmetics, I went with the original Zodiac. A little more earthy, grungy color story. I kind of like that. So this is probably, I'm trying to figure out which one of these I'm going to keep. I have this one in the Love Signs. It's probably going to be this one, especially after doing this video. But yeah, we have 2 more. For Tarte, I have quite a few Tarte palettes. I went with the Tarteist Pro, which is going to probably surprised. It's very boring. Like, it's a neutral, everyday palette, but it's really easy to use. Like, this is very beginner friendly. The colors just kind of blend effortlessly. You do have some shimmers. I went with this instead of the Remix just because you have more mattes in here. The Remix, I think there's only 2. It's a good companion to this, but if I was only going to keep one, this one would be the better option. Since if I kept the other one, I wouldn't have the mattes. And then last is Jeffree Star. Now, I know if you're subscribed to the channel already, you're probably thinking that it's going to be the Alien palette because that is one of my all-time favorite palettes. It's not the Alien palette. I was going to pick that one, and then I was thinking realistically, what's the palette that I use the most? Even though Alien is my favorite, Jawbreaker is the palette that I use the most. Anytime I do a rainbow colorful look, 9 times out of 10, it's this one. And the reason I didn't pick the Sugar Pill pastel palette was because there are pastel shades in here. So I figured I didn't need that one and went with this one. So I did kind of have a thought process as a whole as far as picking palettes within the brands. You've got a shimmery white and a matte white. There's no black in here. That's the only downfall. You do have a dark blue, but you've got a light pink and a darker pink. The only downfall is there's no matte dark purple. The darker purple is shimmery. There is a pastel purple, but you've got matte and shimmery yellow, oranges, reds, the blues. Like I said, 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing a rainbow look on my channel, I'm using this. So as much as it killed me to not include the Alien palette, realistically, this is the palette that of his that's gotten the most use. So yeah, that was, if I could only keep one palette from each brand, it was hard. Like I said, I had anxiety picking the ABH, and I had anxiety with the Jeffree Star category, and a little bit with Urban Decay. The Urban Decay category was hard because I have some older discontinued palettes that I use a lot, and so it was hard to think about if I was going to get rid of all of them. But yeah, let me know what you thought of my list. Are there ones, which ones would you have picked? Like, if you have multiple palettes from these brands, which ones would you have chosen? I'm curious to know. Thank you guys so much. Again, make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. Hopefully everybody is staying safe. Hopefully this was fun. I don't know why these videos give me anxiety because I always feel like I'm really going to get rid of the stuff when I'm picking, and so it's really hard, but everything's going to go back with the rest. So yeah, thank you guys again. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will hopefully see you all in another video very soon. Bye everybody.